Our meeting will now come to order. We welcome all of you, and we are tonight holding the Fayette County School Corporation's Board of School Trustees public hearing. Will you stand and do a pledge of allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kirshner. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. We're here this evening for the purpose of a public hearing on our superintendent's contract. And I will now turn the meeting over to Marcia Bagala, who is our school attorney that will be conducting this part of the meeting.
Thank you. Good evening. We are here tonight to hold a public meeting on a proposed new superintendent's contract. The statute, Indiana Code 2026-5 4.3, requires that the board hold such a public meeting on the proposed contract at which public comment is heard. The board will listen to your comments. There will not be any debate or questions or answers or comments by the board. The board's only purpose is to be here to listen. Before we discuss the details of how the meeting will proceed, I just wanted to briefly describe the process that was utilized by the board in preparing the proposed contract. The board appointed a committee consisting of Warren Taylor, Ann Kirshner, and Chris Hunt. They in turn secured my services to meet with Mr. Collins to discuss the terms of a proposed contract. The committee also met with myself and Mr. Collins. What is being considered tonight is a proposed contract. It has not been acted on by the board and will not be addressed by the board until its public meeting on November the 15th. The process for tonight, those of you who wish to speak have signed up. I will call on each of you individually. If you would please come up to the podium when I call on you, state your name and your address. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, and each speaker may only speak once. And I'm sure it goes without saying for everyone that everyone should be courteous and civil in their comments. So with that, we will begin. I don't know which order these are in. Tim Bentley.
Well, I didn't know I was going to get drawn first, but anyways, good evening. I guess
Your address?
my address, yes, let me start with that, 620 East Tulip Lane here in Connersville. I guess all this has been publicized, the proposed contract and everything, and I know the board's kind of looking at Mr. Collins as the potential replacement. And I think Scott knows how I feel about him. I mean, I think Scott's a great guy. Was principal of my own kids for several years at Alquina Elementary School, which no longer stands. My thought is, as a citizen, the timing doesn't need to happen now. I believe, Dr. Hodges, you're here until the end of January. I think we need to be courteous of the citizens of Fayette County. Fayette County is one of the poorest counties in the state. We need to be very diligent in understanding what we're offering a superintendent. I mean, I think Scott Collins is worth a lot. He's one of our own. We certainly want him strongly considered for the position. But we're talking a county that most people's making about $40,000 a year, a county that's struggling in unemployment and so forth. I believe several of you board members are up for re-election, and we need to strongly consider what the public feels and how they feel. And I believe the vote needs to happen after the election. I believe it needs to happen with the new board. If those of you that are rerunning for election, let the people speak. If they want you to vote, they'll vote you in tomorrow. If they don't, the vote needs to happen after January 1. Thank you.
Lisa Witt.
My name is Lisa Witt. My address is 1631 West County Road 300 North here in Connorsville. Coming before as a mother and as someone who has worked in the schools, I think it's great that we are looking at a superintendent who has been involved in our community. However, like Mr. Bentley, I also feel that we do have a new board potentially coming in, and their thoughts should be considered. After all, it's not going to be until in January when we need a new superintendent. I realize we have to think ahead on things, but I also realize that a lot of times our teachers are having to buy out of their pocket our kids' school supplies, and as parents, and I think we got to weigh our money and figure out what are we doing, how are we budgeting our money when we look at getting a new superintendent, and are we putting Connorsville, which is one of the poorest counties, I think we're like 6th in the state, I do believe, are we trying to pay what the bigger towns are paying when in reality our towns, it's financially strapped. So thank you.
Jason Waterman.
Jason Waterman, 3278 Serenity Parkway, Connorsville. As you are all aware, this is the night before the election. This is a special session held the night before the election. Perception is everything in our democracy, and we elect people because they are perceived to be honest and trustworthy. And having things done, this type of a scenario, the timing of this can give the impression that we have a potential lame duck board trying to force something through. And I would hate for our new superintendent, whether it be Mr. Collins or someone else, if ultimately a decision is reached, it wouldn't be Mr. Collins, but I would hate for our new superintendent to have to come in and fulfill his duties with a cloud of suspicion overhanging, that this was something that was done without the will of the voters, because we have several people who are up for election tomorrow and potentially a whole new board to be seated. So I would ask that, for the sake of, making everything crystal clear for everybody and not having a cloud, that we just delay that final decision until after the new board is seated. Thank you.
Virginia Mays.
Hi, my name is Virginia Mays. I reside at 3283 West County Road, 580 South, here in Connorsville. And as a mother, I volunteered in a lot of schools, and I see them struggling in the classrooms. They're struggling for supplies. They're struggling for, to meet social needs of these kids. And I find the contract, which I have personally read, to be in excess and be quite excessive. I agree with all the other candidates that this is the night before the election. And as a candidate, I think that it would only be courteous to allow the potentially new candidates and that are elected tomorrow, may or may not be elected tomorrow, the opportunity to voice their concerns on this particular contract. It's a big deal. Just like the other people have said, we are one of the poorest counties. our children are, living in poverty, and most of our aides are making less than $10 an hour. And they're struggling to make ends meet. And so when I look at that and I see that, and then I look at a $7,200 car allowance for a superintendent who's making $125,000 a year, I find that to be excessive. I don't know, I did some quick numbers, and these may not be perfect, but if we allocated that $7,200 to classroom supplies, it would almost double the teacher's allowance for classroom supplies. It would certainly increase it by 50%. So I think there's some things that could be considered outside of, this contract. And, as a candidate, I would be curious as to where have we looked for a replacement? Have we looked in other places for a replacement? These are some questions that I would have as a member of the school board. And I don't know Mr. Collins at all, but, these are some things that I just have after reading over the contract. I think that we should postpone this decision until after the new board is seated. Thank you.
David Burks.
Hi, I'm David Burks at 2309 Lincoln Avenue here in Connersville. I've been a resident here since I was hired here 25 years ago now as a teacher. Retired 2 years now. I'm a candidate for District 3 for this school board, so I'm very concerned about this sudden meeting. Why do we have to approve this contract now and have it voted on the 15th when we have practically a majority of a board being reelected or elected in this election tomorrow? I couldn't agree more. The timing is terrible, and it makes it look bad. Personally, I would like to be elected, or I wouldn't be running. And if I am elected, I want to have input on the contract with the superintendent that we have that'll run most of the time that I'm on the board. So I propose that we table this and the acceptance of a candidate until after the board is seated for the new year. My second concern is, as addressed here, the cost of this contract is outrageous considering our local economy. Every citizen I talk to is not just incensed about it. They're appalled that this could even be proposed, let alone passed. We have so many good expenses that need to be addressed in this corporation. What makes a superintendent, what does he do or she do that makes them worth 4 times the salary of an average teacher in this corporation? Or 10 times the salary of an aide? We have real needs in our classroom that need to be addressed. This contract tells the people of Fayette County, we're patting the people that are in charge here. Not the school board members, because we get practically nothing. But the people in charge of our corporation should be looking out for the kids and not their own bottom line. Thank you.
Mr. President, those are all the people who have signed up to speak. There's no other business for this meeting.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Helton. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here.